Mediterranean-style diet among urban and rural overweight and obese college students. And this work was done in partnership with my mentor, Dr. Jessica DePuniak at NYU. Okay, so first to understand why I chose this topic and why it really is important to me, I think it's important to see the obesity trends in America right now and how they are clearly on a rise. So the national childhood obesity rate is at 18.5%, and 20.6% of 12 to 19-year-olds are obese. So a lot of students in this room right now are in that age range, and I think we can say that it's very important to understand teenagers and the obesity rate. It's on the rise, and if we don't do something about it and include nutritional interventions soon enough, it's going to be a very steep increase in the future. So to understand what the Mediterranean diet is and what nutritional interventions we need to implement, you have to understand the Mediterranean diet pyramid. So looking at what it is itself, it's a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole wheat, legumes, and seeds, herbs, and spices. So at the bottom, you'll see a larger amount of what's in the diet, and then as you go up the pyramid, it's what is less included in it. So there's a lot of fish in it, but it doesn't really include poultry, eggs, dairy, meats, and sweets. So as you go up, you want less of that in your diet. And then on the side, you can see that wine and water are also part of it, and wine has actually been proven to be very healthy for you and moderation, and that's included in a lot of Mediterranean regions, so it's also included in the diet. And then at the bottom, I think a lot of people really forget to see that in a diet you need communal activity, being active, and that's something that's really reflective in the Mediterranean diet as well. So looking at the benefits of the Mediterranean diet, the first thing would be that it prevents type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome. It increases life expectancy, looking at all the different health factors and benefits of the diet. The Mediterranean diet decreases the risk of cardiac disease and death by 30%. It's low in processed foods and sugar, as we saw from the previous slide, in the meats and sweets. It fights cancer, and olive oil is heart healthy. So the objectives would be to assess the level of Mediterranean diet adherence in overweight and obese college students, and also to determine if adherence to the Mediterranean diet differs between urban and rural campuses. And both of these would be included to develop targeted approaches to improve Mediterranean diet adherence in college students. And that goes on to why I wanted to do the study that I did. So my actual study itself was a descriptive cross-sectional study with no intervention, meaning that I didn't directly work with the students to see how we can fix what I found. Overweight and obese students from 2 four-year institutions were part of my population, and they were from rural and urban campuses. And students were contacted through flyers and announcements on campus, so they were clearly shown what they were going to be doing in the study. And there was a 40-minute long study for height and weight measurements, and this was done using Qualtrics, which is a survey database. And participants completed a food record of 4 non-consecutive days. And this is very important because when you're actually recording your diet, if you record 4 consecutive days, you're not getting the whole idea of what you're eating. This would actually be technically an 8-day span, showing a larger breadth of what you would eat in a certain week. And students were paid $30 for participation, and food records were analyzed and assessed using validated Mediterranean diet tools, and the one that I used was KidMed, which we'll review in later slides. So looking at my study population, the 2 different campuses that I compared were NYU, my urban campus, and UConn, my rural campus. And so the KidMed questionnaire was something I worked a lot with my junior year, and it actually is a 16-point system, which is a Mediterranean diet tool. Now, a lot of people are very confused about what a tool is. It's just a way for me to numerically assess somebody's diet and to put a number on each student so that we can easily compare how they eat and how they compare to other students across campuses. So as you can see from the 16 points here, you have 12 that have a +1 on the left, and then 4 that have a -1. What that means is that there's a positive connotation and a negative connotation. Positive would be something that they're doing good in the diet, and negative would be something they're doing bad. For example, a -1 would be that they skip breakfast at least 2 to 3 times a week, which doesn't go along with the Mediterranean diet at all, so they would get a -1 on their score. So at the key at the right, you'll see that there are different times that they would do each part of the diet, and that would be every day, more than once a week, 2 to 3 times a week, etc. And the KidMed questionnaire had these different scores that I calculated. So As you can see here, less than or equal to 3 would be a poor adherence, 4 to 7 would be considered a moderate adherence, and then 8 to 12 would be considered a high adherence to the diet. So this was a way for us to broadly see and group different students, poor, moderate, and high, and then it was very easy for me to compare between the rural and urban campus. And then additional variables that I looked into were body weight and height, and also a body mass index, which we did take into account when we were choosing our population. So body mass index would be weight over height. So looking at the statistics when I analyzed my data, continuous variables would be BMI, age, and the KidMed score, that 16-point list that we talked about before. And I tested for normality using the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test. And then for independent t-tests, I used that for parametric data. And then for my non-parametric data, I used a Mann-Whitney test. And p-value of less than or equal to 0.05 was considered statistically significant in this study. And trending towards significance would be 0.05 to 0.09. But looking at my categorical variables, I used a chi-square and compared the KidMed criteria between NYU and UConn. And I used SPSS to do this. And then this was some of my demographic results and something that really enveloped a lot of what my population was. As you can see, between NYU and UConn, we had a very similar number of people, which was a good plus when I wanted to compare how many people we had. We did have a lot more females than males, but looking at racial heritage and ethnicity, everything was pretty much scattered and it was very even. So that's another positive to this study. And then the class standing, we wanted to have a lot of different students from different age groups so that we could see if maybe that affected it as well. So now I'm going to be talking about my results, so the significant differences and trends. So the first thing that was statistically significant was the idea of second fruit. So as you can see from this graph, at NYU we have more students consuming a second fruit than in UConn, which means the urban campus had more of a leg up on this part of the diet. But we still have a high number of students that didn't consume a second fruit, as shown through the large red bars to your right. And then the next statistically significant would be yogurt, that had a p-value of 0.008, meaning very significant. And a lot more NYU students than UConn students consumed it, but you have less of a no answer to it, showing that more students were consuming this. And now looking at fast food, I actually found this very interesting because at NYU you have more fast food consumption, which you would already think before even looking at this study. But that actually shows us that at urban campuses, we have more students that are consuming unhealthy foods, fast food, and that maybe we should have more nutritional interventions considering dining halls and how we can make them more even toward the rural campuses, which are actually healthier. And then low fish consumption was seen throughout the entire both campuses. Really, a lot of students didn't consume it. I only noticed when I was analyzing the food records that sushi would be more of a fish that the students were eating, but that would show that maybe we need to include that in dining halls as well. And then olive oil, nut, and pulse consumption was also especially low. They just weren't statistically significant, just trending towards significant. And then looking at Mediterranean diet tools, I worked a lot with this the summer going into my senior year. So right here, what you see is what an assessment tool is. So I discussed KidMed before, but there are so many different assessment tools that you can use, and they are used to assign a numerical value to someone's diet. So as you can see in both of these charts, I've actually charted different tools that I have reviewed in literature, and there are lots of different ways that you can take a bunch of different foods, put them into a list, and check using food records. So that's exactly what I did, but there are lots of different ways to do that. And the common criteria within a tool would be the components of the Mediterranean diet, how it has to be administered, a yes or no answer, point values, and exclusion criteria. And so looking at my discussion, we have NYU, UConn, Croatia, and Cyprus. Croatia and Cyprus were two different universities, but as you can see, those are Mediterranean areas. So they had far higher Mediterranean diet tool values. And that shows that really in America, we have this growing obesity rate, and we should probably focus more on solving this problem with the Mediterranean diet that has shown to be very good in Croatia and Cyprus. So as you can see here, the average KidMed score is 3.85, 3.80. That would be very close to a low adherence, whereas 5 and 6 would be a moderate adherence. So looking at the limitations and strengths of my study, limitations included that we had a very small sample size, and there were a lot more females than males in the sample size, meaning that we couldn't entirely view the population as a whole, and it did affect the generalizability of our findings. There may have also been inaccurate reporting from students. I'm sure if a nutritionist told you to say what you ate in a day, you probably wouldn't be very true to what you were eating if it wasn't that good. So some of the students may have lied, and it didn't really reflect the entire pyramid. And looking at the strengths, it was validated in college students, the KidMed study, and it was also calculated from 4-day food records, and it was also used in multiple studies around the world. So some strategies for increasing Mediterranean diet adherence that I found. To add a Mediterranean diet food choice to the dining hall in both urban and rural settings. I feel like there are very generic food choices in dining halls and students don't often know what to do with them. So if we were to have nutrition interventions showing students how to use different foods to create a Mediterranean diet, it would probably be very effective. Also, creating a healthy eating cookbook aimed toward teenagers and college students. I actually did that in my summer, and I was able to publish one that was easy for teens to understand. And that, I think it's all about being easy and for college students who have so many other stresses in life to understand how to eat. And on-campus cooking classes, fruit outside of dorms, and also campus assessments for targeted interventions would also be effective. So some future work and the idea of a self-administered Mediterranean diet tool. I would like to one day assess a tool that develops everything about the Mediterranean diet, including eating with others and exercising, but also a study in 2018 found that there's something called a self-administered Mediterranean diet score, so you don't need a nutritionist or researchers to do it for you. You can do it yourself, and it's easier, and then if you would like to take the steps to become a healthier individual, you can see what your score is and then make changes to your lifestyle and diet based on that. So I would like to give a special thanks to New York University and my mentors, Dr. Jessica DeValunia, also my school advisors, Ms. Croce and Dr. Aragoni, and others I worked with were Jennifer Clement, Greg Scolari, and Morgan Dickinson. These are my references. Does anyone have any questions?